Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about the best books of 2023. I'm a little bit late to the party, but I wanted to do it anyways because I read, I think, about 40-ish books this year. There were a lot of ups and there were a lot of downs. I do want to talk about the worst books of 2023 as well, but that will come in a different video. So for now, we're going to talk about the best books of the year. I am going to go in order of which month I read them in for the best book of that month. Then at the very end, I will talk about which one was my absolute best for the year. And then there is one that was a close second. So stick around until the end for that. But without further ado, let's get started. So I did read quite a few indie books this year. A lot of them were by Rebecca Crundon. The first book that I read that was the best of the month of January last year was These Violent Nights by Rebecca Crundon. And this book, I had tried to read it at first 2 years ago now, back in 2022, around summertime, I think. But there was a scene that was pretty triggering for me and I had to put it down, and I was tempted to delete it entirely from my phone because I did not think that I was going to pick it back up. But then in January last year I decided to pick it up again, and I'm so glad I did because it was really, really great. It is like a sci-fi fantasy thing, and honestly I don't remember much of the plot, but honestly, even if I did, I think when it comes to indie books, I'm going to be really vague, and I encourage you to look at the synopsis on Goodreads yourself because I have a horrible time trying to explain it without giving it away, and with indie books, I don't want to give anything away, but it is a story about sisters, about family and found family and rebellion and so many wonderful things that I personally love. I don't think it counts as dystopian. I think it's just a sci-fi fantasy thing, but it is a standalone. It's not part of a series. Although I wouldn't mind if it was part of a series. I wouldn't mind if she wrote a second one, but it did end very well, very conclusively, so it doesn't need a sequel by any means. In February, I picked The Liberty Box by C.A. Gray. And this is an author that I got the free ebook from as well because I had signed up for, I forget which one it was. I don't remember if it was Voracious Readers Only or Book Cave. It was really good. It was a sci-fi dystopian thing. I believe it would fall into the dystopian category. It's a little bit hard. I really like the dystopian genre, which is not a popular opinion, but I don't care. This is a side note, but people say that like they don't like the dystopian genre because it's the same thing just over and over again, and it's just, in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, so is literally every other genre. It's the same thing over and over again. So take that how you want, I guess. But yeah, I really like the dystopian genre, so I'm always down to give that a try. But one of the things that surprised me about it is that there was no spice. And I am not someone who likes to read spice. I'm not someone who likes to read any kind of smut. It's not my thing. I don't mind it if it's done like not too much. I have my limit, but I am able to read a book with it and still enjoy the book overall. But The Liberty Box, back to that one. That's the important one we're talking about right now. It is part of a series, and I really want to read the rest. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think I read it pretty quickly, which doesn't happen for me because I'm such a big mood reader. So it can be difficult. In March, the best book of that month was The Given by Gary Clark. I read this book in 2 days. In 2 days. like I just said, that doesn't happen. I don't read books very fast. But I don't remember what it was that I was upset about, but I was upset about something in my personal life. And I felt like, okay, I need a distraction of some kind. I want to read a book. There's this book that I've had sitting on my phone for a while, and I want to read it. So I picked it up one evening. I think I picked it up at about 7:30 at night, and then I stayed up until about 9 or 10 that night, and I had gotten halfway through, and then the next morning I finished it real quick. Honestly, if I had started the book earlier on in the day, the first day that I started reading it, I would have finished it in one sitting. It was so good. It kept me on the edge of my seat. This is another, both the last book I talked about, I don't think I mentioned, but and this book too, independently published. So again, I'm gonna just kind of gloss over it a bit. But it kept me on the edge of my seat. It was so intriguing. I had such intense, like, visceral reactions to it. And I don't normally do that. Like, I will react when things happen in books, and, like, I will gasp or sigh or cringe or cry or whatever. I will do that. But not as intensely as I did with this book. It was great. It had so many elements that I really loved in it. There was one part that seemed a little bit odd, but again, this is part of a series. I believe it's a quartet. So that has its chance to get explained in the later books. It was incredible. There were a couple of moments towards the end where I did have a hard time picturing things. However, for the most part, I could picture things perfectly and understand it, and it was good, and there was a plot twist at the end that was amazing, and it was a bit predictable, but I still loved it. I loved it anyway, even though I had guessed it right. Honestly, if I guess an ending of the book right, when, like, I'm not 100% sure on it, but I'm pretty sure that's where it's going, and I get it right, I feel so happy about it. I'm not even mad. If it's, like, very obvious that that's how it's going to end, then I don't like it. But it wasn't that obvious. There was still questions like, okay, well, this could happen, or this could happen, or this. It was great. It was great. So, highly recommend it. In April, I finally read a traditionally published book, and that was Breathe and Count Back from 10 by Natalia Sylvester. This book was so good, obviously, because it's on this list, but I really, really love this book. It has disability representation, which I'm always down for. As long as it's done correctly, I'm down for it. And the main character is also a person of color. I forget exactly what her ethnicity is, but she is a person of color. And she has hip dysplasia. And so ever since she was really young, she's had to go in for surgeries to correct it, and had to stick to, like, a specific exercise routine, and, like, you know, all of the things that encompass having a disability, and especially one that requires surgeries like that. And a lot of people, I was reading some of the reviews on it, some of the lower star reviews, and a lot of people were saying, like, oh, the main character is annoying and blah blah blah. But honestly, like, I did notice, like, she was pretty bitter, but honestly, when you're disabled and you're in pain all the time, it's really hard not to go to that place. It's really hard not to just be bitter all the time. I know I'm guilty of it as well. And I don't have dysplasia. I don't have hip dysplasia, sorry. But I do understand the constant surgeries part. I've had so many surgeries in the past few years because of my endometriosis, and one that was unrelated to that, but it was still pain related. It's a lot to handle when you're constantly going in for surgeries and you feel like your body is failing you. And I think this book did such a good job in capturing that. I'm having such a hard time with words today, forgive me. But also what this book is about is it's about the main character. Gosh, I forget her name. I found it so inspiring because I felt really heard and seen as a person with a disability, with how it was represented, and how she pursued her dream of being a mermaid in in a performance show at, I forget exactly what it was called. I think it was like an aquarium or something. I don't fully remember. But they would have these girls who would put on a mermaid tail and a swimsuit, and they would do a dance to kind of a dance like in the water. Obviously, I don't know why I felt the need to clarify that, but anyway. And our main character had grown up like seeing these shows, and she absolutely loved them, and she loves swimming because it's one of the activities that her doctor has advised her to do, and it helps her pain, and she just really enjoys the water. She really loves it. She decides to pursue that. In May, I read Fire at Her Fingertips by Rebecca Crundon. There's quite a few of her books in this list, so you will see it pop up more and more. I read quite a few of her short stories. This was one of them, and it was a fantasy. Again, it was just so well done. I very rarely dislike a Rebecca Crundon book. The only times when, like, the lowest I've rated one of her books, I think, would be like 3 stars, where it's like, okay, it was just okay. You know, not her best, but definitely not bad either. Like, 3 stars is still a solid rating. It's still like, okay, you know what, that's a solid read. I'd still recommend that. But this one, I forget if I rated it 4 or 5 stars, but it was so good. It was so magical. In June, I read a nonfiction book. It's the only nonfiction book on this list, and that is God's Peace in the Midst of Pain by June Hunt. Ironically, I read this in June, and her name is June. It's kind of funny to me. But anyway, I got this at my church library, and the lady who runs the library there, she was willing to actually let me keep it, and I was so grateful for that, because this book, it was just so helpful. It tells story. I forget her name and exactly what happened. I have it here somewhere. So this is it, and it's teeny tiny. So part of it is using scripture and that kind of thing in order to apply it to living with chronic pain and a disability. And then the other part of it is telling the story of a girl named Joni. She was 17 years old. She went to this bay with her boyfriend at the time, and I think a few other friends were with her as well. And there was this cliff that they were jumping off of and diving into the water, and she hit the bottom too shallow, and she was paralyzed. Her story is so inspiring, and this entire book was so good. I know that a lot of people don't like the whole idea of like using your disability to, and how you manage it to like inspire other people, because, you know, to put it bluntly, disabled people are not inspiration porn. That's a weird term, but honestly, we don't exist just to inspire you and make you grateful for your health. You know what I mean? So, which I agree with. But when life gets hard, it is inspiring for other people to see you not necessarily overcome it, because you can't really overcome disability. You try and live life to the best of your ability, even if that does look different than people who don't have a disability or chronic pain. And that can be inspirational because, like I said before, it can be really hard to not fall into a pit of negativity. And so that book really helped me to reaffirm kind of what I already knew. Like, I already knew that it's not my sin It's not a curse that was put on me by God. I already knew that. But to have that kind of validated and reaffirmed, and I also read this at a time when I was still trying to kind of recover from somebody who was pretty close to me, not super close, but close enough that it hurt, who said a lot of ableist things. Really hard. And so to read something like this that reaffirmed the fact that it's not my fault, and that, you know, God's plan is bigger and better than anything that I could have ever imagined, and I'm not necessarily going to know why I became disabled. I'm not necessarily going to know that. And I might not see healing on this side of heaven. I might not see that until after I get up there. The book helped me to come to terms with that and to accept that and to praise God regardless. Okay, after I spent way too long talking about that book, in July, the best book that I read was Lucky in Love by Casey West. This one is a YA romance. It is traditionally published, so I can go into a little bit more detail, I think. And I wanted to read something a bit more lighthearted, and I wanted a good, cutesy romance book without spice. And this book was perfect for that. It's a really cute story. It's about this girl. She's 17 at the very beginning, but then for her 18th birthday, she buys a lottery ticket just kind of on a whim, and she ends up winning. And then it becomes this whole thing, and her parents are telling her, talk to a financial advisor. Please. Yeah, it kind of goes from there. I don't want to spoil it. I'm not sure. It's hard for me to know what exactly is spoilers in something like a romance novel, because it's, you know, it's not as intricate as something like a sci-fi or fantasy. But I will say I really liked the romance. I liked the love interest. It was a pretty healthy relationship, and it was really nice to see that, especially when it's geared towards a younger audience, to see an actually healthy relationship portrayed. And it was really refreshing, and it was just what I needed. In August, the only book that I read was Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I have a full video reviewing this book and the entire series, so if you want to watch that video next, I will have that linked below. But this book, it was so beautiful, and I will say Caraval does have some of the problems of a debut novel. The purple prose is the worst in this book, and then it does get better throughout the rest of the series, and then into the Once Upon a Broken Heart series as well. It's not as prevalent, so there is that. But this was 100% a 5-star read. Continuing on with that, the best book that I read in September was Finale. That's the end of the Caraval trilogy, except for Spectacular, which comes out later this year. If you don't know, I swear it's gonna be good. It comes out in October, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to get back into the characters of Caraval, with Scarlet and Tella and Legend and Julian. I'm so excited. But with Finale, it was definitely the best book of the series. This one is more like a 6 out of 5. So it was so good. Again, it's part of my review of the entire series, so if you want to know more, go ahead and watch that. In October, I read Once Upon a Broken Heart. As you can tell, after I read Caraval, I got on a Stephanie Garber kick. I absolutely adored her writing, and this one was a 4-star read for me. I did make a video that it will be coming soon about the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, so if you want to know more, I will have that one linked below once it's published. So right when this video comes up, it's not going to be down there, but it will be there soon. So either subscribe so that you do see it right away, or you can always come back to this video and then click the link there. It's up to you, but that's that. November, best book of the year was The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. Oh my gosh. Almost every single book of hers is just immaculate. It is beautiful. It is chef's kiss. Great. I can't stop reading or recommending her books. I can't. I can't. Can't do it. Finally, in December, I read the Spellbook for the Once Cursed by Rebecca Crendon. This is actually a sequel to a novella. I'm pretty sure. I forget if both of these books are novellas or short stories. It's one of the two. I think they're short stories. I don't remember. But anyway. So yeah, it's a sequel to The Man and the Crow, which I liked. It was a solid 3 stars. Solid read. Enjoyed it enough to want to read the sequel. I don't think I'll continue with the series though, because I'm not too invested in the characters. It is definitely one that I would recommend. I know a lot of other people who have read these books really love it, and they really did connect with the characters. Yeah, go ahead, read it, get it, support indie authors. So the runner-up for the best book of the year is this one. And I don't have this as my favorite book of the year because it's the only nonfiction on this list, and trying to compare fiction and nonfiction and how much I enjoyed it is really difficult. It's like picking between apples and oranges, you know what I mean? It's so hard, like you can't really pick between the two. They're just not comparable. And that one almost made it at my number one favorite because it did strengthen my relationship with God, and of course that is the most important thing to me. But again, it's just about the fiction versus nonfiction thing. It's not that I necessarily loved it less. I think I loved them about the same as my top pick, which I'll mention in a minute. But yeah, it was a really tough call. And honestly, they're like neck and neck. They're real close to being number one. But with all that out of the way, my number one best book for 2023 was Finale by Stephanie Garber. I think I said it all already. I don't want to repeat myself and make this video any longer than it already is. But there you have it. It is absolutely my favorite book of the year, and honestly, I'm probably going to read some pretty good books this year. Looking forward to it. I'm reading one book right now that I'm predicting at least a 4-star read, so there is that. I have a good feeling that I'm going to absolutely love Spectacular when it comes out. Finale, absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But yeah, so that is the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. The worst books of the year is going to be coming soon. I read quite a few that were just not it. So if you're interested in that, definitely consider subscribing. Or if you're interested in other book videos like this one, then yeah, I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.